Hello, and welcome to the Unsleeping Historian. Allow the weight of your day to gently release. Allow your body to grow heavy, comfortable, and still. There is nothing for you to do now, nowhere for you to be, except here. In this quiet space, we are going to let the noise of the present fade away, like a distant echo. The room around you is likely quiet. The bed or chair supporting you is soft, a modern comfort designed for rest. But we are going on a journey to a time long before such certainties, a time before the grand monuments of Rome or the golden masks of the pharaohs. We are drifting back, further and further, to a world that existed as a quiet whisper on the floodplains of a great river. Tonight, we journey to the Indus Valley Civilization, a culture of immense scale and profound mystery. They built some of the world's first great cities, organized and orderly, and then they vanished, leaving behind silent ruins and a language we cannot read. This is not a story of grand battles or dramatic kings. It is a story of bricks and water, of grain and beads, of the slow, rhythmic pulse of a life both incredibly sophisticated and unimaginably difficult. So, close your eyes if you wish, let your mind quiet, and allow the current of time to carry you back to the world of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Our journey begins not with their achievements, but with the fundamental, everyday realities of their existence. We begin by understanding why, for all its order, this was a world in which you, a person of the modern age, would struggle to survive. Imagine yourself standing on a vast, flat plain. The air is heavy, thick with humidity that clings to your skin. It carries the scent of damp earth, of silt left by a receding river, and the faint, smoky perfume of countless small, slow-burning fires. The sun, even as it begins to dip towards the horizon, is a powerful weight, pressing down with a dry, persistent heat. Before you stands the city, but it does not look like any city, you know. There are no soaring spires, no glittering glass, no chaotic jumble of competing architecture. Instead, what you see is a massive, raised mound of earth, and upon it, a sprawling complex of structures built from a seemingly infinite supply of reddish-brown, baked bricks. It is a vista of monolithic color, of stark lines and right angles. This is Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead, though its inhabitants surely called it something else, a name now lost to time. As you walk closer, the sheer order of the place becomes apparent. The streets are laid out in a grid, remarkably straight, running north, south, and east. They are wide enough for two carts to pass. The uniformity is profound, almost unsettling. The bricks, every brick seems to be the exact same size and proportion, a testament to a centralized authority and a shared understanding of measurement that is staggering for its time, nearly 4,500 years ago. You step into the city proper, and the sounds of life, though muted, are all around. Not the clamor of a modern metropolis, but a more organic, rhythmic collection of noises. The lowing of zebu cattle with their distinctive humps, the gentle bleating of goats, the distant, rhythmic thud of a potter's wheel, and the soft scrape of sandals on dusty brick. Let us find your home in this ancient city. You are led down a main thoroughfare, and then into a narrower side street. Here, the houses stand wall to wall. They are functional, not ornate. You see no grand entryways. Your home, like all the others, presents a simple, unadorned brick face to the street. Privacy and utility are the guiding principles here. You enter through a doorway that opens not into a living space, but into a small room or a passage that turns a corner. This design ensures the passers beyond the street cannot see directly into the heart of the home, into the central courtyard. Every house is built around this open-air courtyard. It is the center of family life, the source of light and air for all the surrounding rooms. And here, in your new home, you encounter the first great struggle of your existence, the constant, pervasive presence of water. The Indus River is the lifeblood of this civilization. Its predictable annual floods deposit the rich silt that makes agriculture possible on this immense scale. But that same water is a relentless adversary. Your home is built of fired brick, a marvel of engineering designed to withstand moisture. Yet, the dampness is inescapable. You can feel it in the air in your courtyard. You can see it in the faint, dark lines, where moisture has wicked up the lower courses of the brick walls. A faint, musty smell of mildew is a permanent resident in the cooler, darker storage rooms. Many homes, perhaps even your own, have a well, a perfect circle of brick, sunk deep into the earth, providing clean water, an incredible convenient. But it is also another source of dampness, right in the center of your living space. And then there is the bathing platform, a dedicated area in the house, paved with waterproofed, fired bricks, with a drain that slopes gently away. You perform your daily ablutions here, the water running down, away from your feet. This leads us to one of the most famous features of the Indus Valley Civilization, their sanitation system. From your bathing platform, and from latrines on the upper floors of many houses, the wastewater flows into a covered, brick-lined drain that runs down the center of your street. These drains are an engineering marvel, flowing with a gentle, calculated gradient, carrying the waste of the city away from the homes. Workers could lift slabs of brick or stone to clear them when they became clogged. To a modern mind, this sounds wonderfully advanced. But imagine the reality. This system, while revolutionary, was not a sterile, sealed network of PVC pipes. It was a constant, laborious effort to manage filth and water. The drains would sometimes back up. The smell, on a hot day, would be a potent reminder of thousands of people and their animals living in close proximity. The system worked, yes, but it required constant maintenance. It was a collective, unending chore. Life here is a negotiation with water. The city is built on a high mound precisely to escape the worst of the annual flood. But the flood always comes. You would watch the river rise, turning from a placid channel into a brown, churning sea that consumes the fields and laps at the very edges of your city. For weeks, you would be living on an island of brick in a world of water. The humidity would be absolute. Nothing would ever feel truly dry. And after the waters recede, the work begins, repairing any damage, clearing away the silt, and preparing the newly fertilized fields. Now, let us consider the labor that fills your days. The rhythm of your life is not dictated by a clock, but by the sun and the seasons. The vast majority of the population, even those living within these urban centers, were tied to agriculture. Imagine yourself at dawn, leaving the relative safety of the city walls. You walk with others, carrying a simple wooden plow. Your companion is not a horse, but a powerful, steady zebu. The work is back-breaking. You guide the plow, cutting a furrow into the thick, alluvial soil. The sun beats down on your neck. There is no shade in the open fields of wheat and barley. You are not an individual farmer working your own small plot. The sheer scale and organization of the granaries found in these cities suggest a collective, state-level control of agriculture. You work for the city, for the collective. Your labor contributes to the massive stores of grain that feed the priests, the artisans, the traders, and yourself. Your survival is tied to the survival of the entire community. If you are not a farmer, you are an artisan. Perhaps you are a brickmaker. Your days are spent by the riverbank, mixing mud, water, and straw into a thick paste. You press this mixture into a wooden mold, over and over and over again. The same shape, the same size, creating the ubiquitous building blocks of your civilization. You lay the wet bricks out to dry in the relentless sun, then stack them in a kiln for firing. You spend your days enveloped in heat and dust. The rhythmic, repetitive work shaping your muscles and your hours. Or perhaps you are a potter. You sit at a simple, kick-aparated wheel. With practiced, patient hands, you raise the walls of a clay pot. The shapes you produce are, like the bricks, remarkably uniform. Plain, functional earthenware for cooking, for storage, for carrying water. There is a quiet beauty in their simplicity, but they speak of a society that valued utility over individual expression. Your life is the rhythmic kick of the wheel, the cool slip of wet clay through your fingers, the heat of the kiln. This brings us to the tools you use. The Indus Valley people were masters of bronze, but bronze was likely a valuable commodity, not something to be wasted on everyday items. Your plow might be tipped with bronze, but it is mostly wood. Your hand axe for clearing brush is made of chert, a type of stone, painstakingly napped to a sharp edge. The knives in your home are long, slender blades of flint. Now, consider a critical absence. In the thousands of artifacts unearthed from these cities, there is a conspicuous lack of weaponry. Archaeologists have found no swords, few spearheads, and no defensive armor, no shields. The art depicts animals and complex symbols, but no scenes of battle, no glorification of warriors. This has led some to call this a peaceful civilization, a society without war. But the absence of a formal military arsenal does not mean an absence of violence or danger. It simply means your survival depends on different factors. You have no sword to defend yourself. If a dispute with a neighbor turns violent, it is settled with fists, with a heavy clay pot, with a sharpened farming tool. Justice is likely swift and communal, not something adjudicated in a formal court with written laws. More pressingly, the world outside your city walls is not empty. While you may not fear an invading army, you must fear the natural world. Tigers were known to roam the riverine forests. Crocodiles inhabited the marshlands. A lone traveler would be vulnerable. Your safety lies not in a shield on your arm, but in the watchful eyes of your neighbor, in the strength of your community, in the solid brick walls of your city. It is a fragile, unspoken pact. And then there is the struggle that you cannot see, the fight against infection and disease. Your marvelous drainage system helps, but it is not a guarantee of health. Waterborne illnesses like cholera and typhoid would have been a constant threat. A simple cut from a flint knife or a scrape from a fall could become infected. Without antibiotics, without a modern understanding of germs, an infection could easily blossom into a life-threatening fever. Childbirth was perilous for both mother and infant. Life was a fragile flame, easily extinguished. The city's name, Mound of the Dead, feels chillingly appropriate when you consider the high rate of infant mortality and the short life you would have grown up seeing death as a common, frequent visitor, not a distant event of old age. Finally, consider the mental landscape. You live in a highly organized, complex, urban society, but you have no writing. Or, rather, you have a script, a beautiful, complex system of symbols found on small stone seals, and it was likely not used for literature or daily reading. Imagine a world without written contracts, without historical records you can read, without letters from faraway family. Your world is one of memory, of oral tradition, of trust solidified by the pressing of a personal seal into wet clay. Your entire understanding of the world, of your history, of your gods, is passed down through spoken words, through rituals, through the symbols you see but may not fully comprehend. It is a life lived entirely in the immediate, tangible present. The struggle to survive here is not a dramatic, daily battle. It is a slow, grinding, constant effort. It is the effort of keeping the damp at bay, the effort of the repetitive manual labor that builds and sustains the city. It is the constant, low-level vigilance against disease and the dangers of the natural world. It is the challenge of navigating a complex society without the tools of writing or formal weapons. It is a life of community and conformity, where the survival of the whole is paramount. The simple comforts you take for granted, a dry room, a varied diet, instant light, medical care, the certainty of a written word, are all absent. Here, life is a rhythm, a cycle, and a constant, quiet struggle. For centuries, this rhythm of life, this constant, quiet struggle, endured. The cities of the Indus Valley Harappa, generations were born into this world of brick and mortar. They lived and died within this highly organized system. From the outside, it might have seemed eternal, as fixed and enduring as the stars they watched from their flat rooftops. But it was not. Something happened. A slow, creeping change began to unwind the intricate tapestry of their civilization. The great cities, once teeming with tens of thousands of people, began to empty. The rhythm of life faltered, and then, eventually, it fell silent. The story of the Indus Valley is not just how they lived, but also how they disappeared. And this is perhaps the most profound mystery of all. There was no single, dramatic fall, no final, cataclysmic battle. It was a slow vanishing, a quiet retreat from the stage of history. Let us journey forward in time, past the peak of this great culture. Imagine yourself now in a later version of Mohenjo. It is the same city, but it feels different. The air of crisp organization has begun to fray at the edges. The main streets are still there, but the houses seem less cared for. You see walls that have been crudely subdivided, turning once grand family courtyards into cramped, smaller dwellings. The quality of the pottery in your home is not as fine. The bricks used for repairs are often broken or poorly fired. The intricate drainage system is still in place, but it is more frequently clogged. The collective effort that kept the city running seems to be weakening. A kind of civic weariness has set in. What could cause such a decline? For a long time, the most dramatic and popular theory was that of a violent end. In the 1940s, the archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler, excavating at discovered several groups of skeletons in the upper layers of the city. They were not properly buried in the formal cemetery outside the city walls. They were found in houses and even in the middle of a street, lying in contorted positions. Wheeler, influenced by later Vedic texts that speak of the warrior god Indra destroying ancient forts, proposed a dramatic narrative. that the Indus civilization was destroyed by an invasion of tribes sweeping down from the north. He painted a picture of a final, desperate massacre in the streets of the city. For a moment, imagine that theory. The sudden shock, the sounds of conflict echoing in the grid-like streets. A peaceful, unarmed people, overwhelmed by a new, more aggressive culture. It is a compelling story, but it is a story that the evidence, upon calmer reflection, does not fully support. A closer examination of those skeletons revealed a more complicated truth. There were only a few dozen bodies, not the hundreds or thousands you would expect from a citywide slaughter. The remains showed no clear signs of battle wounds from swords or axes. Some may have died from violence. Yes, but it could have been the result of banditry or civil unrest in a failing city, not a full-scale invasion. The massacre was more likely a collection of unfortunate, individual tragedies in a time of social collapse. The grand theory of a single, violent end began to dissolve. So, if not a conqueror, what brought down this mighty civilization? The answer, many historians and archaeologists now believe, lies not in the actions of men, but in the slow, inexorable power of the earth itself. The Indus Valley people were masters of water, but they were also its subjects, utterly dependent on the behavior of the great rivers that watered their plains. Let us consider the theory of climate change. For centuries, the monsoon patterns had been reliable, bringing the rain that fed the rivers. But paleoclimatological evidence suggests that around the time the Indus cities began to decline, the climate became cooler and drier. The monsoons may have become weaker, more erratic. Imagine the effect: a year of poor rains, then another. The mighty Indus, fed by Himalayan glaciers, would still flow. But another crucial river system, the Ghaggar, which ran parallel to the Indus, was entirely dependent on the monsoon. As the rains failed, this other river, once a mighty waterway supporting its own network of towns and villages, began to shrink. It dwindled from a river to a series of seasonal lakes, and then, eventually, to a dry, empty bed. Imagine watching your world dry up. The fields that were once fertile and dark are now cracked and dusty. The yields of wheat and barley grow smaller each year. The vast granaries, the heart of your collective economy, are no longer overflowing. There is less surplus to support the artisans, the traders, the priests. The foundational bargain of your society, that the farmer's labor would feed everyone. People would begin to drift away from the cities, not in a panic, but in a slow, necessary migration, seeking new lands with more reliable water. The city, once the center of security and prosperity, becomes a place of scarcity. Now, let us imagine another force of nature at play. The region where the Indus civilization flourished is tectonically active. It is a place where the Earth's plates grind against each other. A place of earthquakes. A single, massive earthquake could have had devastating consequences. Picture the ground suddenly heaving. The uniform brick houses, so stable for centuries, would crack and fall. Not all at once, perhaps, but a significant tremor could render large parts of the city uninhabitable. But the most profound impact of an earthquake would be on the rivers. A seismic event could have shifted the land, creating a natural dam that blocked the course of the Indus. This could have led to catastrophic flooding, inundating cities and fields for years. Mohenjo-Daro itself shows evidence of multiple, massive flood events, with thick layers of silt burying entire sections of the city, upon which the survivors would later rebuild. Imagine the Sisyphean task of rebuilding your home, your city, again and again, after the very ground beneath you has betrayed you. Alternatively, an earthquake could have shifted a river's course entirely. Imagine waking up one day to find that the river, your lifeblood, no longer flows past your city. It has carved a new channel, miles away. The source of your water, your transport, your spiritual life, has simply moved. The city would be stranded, left to die of thirst on the silent plain. So we are left with a collection of slow, powerful, and impersonal forces. A drying climate, a shifting earth, faltering rivers. It was likely not one of these things, but a confluence of them. A slow-motion catastrophe that unfolded over generations. The decline was not uniform. In some areas, the population simply dispersed into smaller, more rural settlements. They abandoned the grand, urban experiment. They adapted. Life went on. But the central organization, the uniformity of bricks and weights, the vast trade networks, all of that faded away. The great cities were gradually abandoned, left to the wind and the dust. The fired bricks were later scavenged by villagers for their own homes. The mounds slowly crumbled, and with the dissolution of the cities, the most enigmatic part of their culture also disappeared. The beautiful, complex symbols on the stone seals, which had unified the civilization for centuries, fell out of use. No one carved them anymore. The knowledge of what they meant, the stories they told, the names they recorded, all of that was lost. The memory of this world was erased. The collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization was the end of a world, but it was a quiet ending. There are no epic poems lamenting the fall of Harappa, no chronicles detailing the last days of Mohenjo-Daro. There is only the archaeological evidence, the silent skeletons, the layers of flood silt, the drying of a riverbed, the fraying of a once great society. It is the story of a people who built a world of astonishing order and then watched, over the course of lifetimes, as that order slowly, inexorably came apart. Their grand cities became silent mounds, holding their secrets, waiting thousands of years to be discovered again. The cities crumbled, the rivers shifted, the people dispersed, and in their wake, they left behind a profound silence. A silence that has lasted for nearly 4,000 years. We see the ghost of their world in the ruins of their cities, in their carefully wrought pottery, in their beads of carnelian and gold. But we cannot hear their voice. We do not know their names, the names of their kings, the words of their prayers, or the stories of their heroes. The key to that lost voice lies in the most beautiful and frustrating legacy they left behind: the script. When archaeologists first began to unearth the treasures of Harappa and Mohenjo, they found thousands of tiny, exquisite objects. Small, square seals, most no bigger than a modern postage stamp. They were carved with incredible skill from a soft stone called steatite, then fired to a hard, durable finish. On the back of each seal is a small, perforated lump of stone, a boss, allowing it to be threaded on a string and worn, perhaps around the neck or wrist. But it is the face of these seals that holds the great mystery. Each one bears two things. First, an image, a pictograph of stunning realism. You see a magnificent zebu bull, with its heavy dewlap and powerful horns. An elephant, its hide wrinkled and true to life. A rhinoceros, a tahir, and most frequently of all, a creature never seen in nature. An animal that looks like a bull with a single, long horn, extending forward from its brood, the so-called unicorn of the Indus Valley. And above these masterfully carved animals, on every seal, is a line of script, a string of elegant, abstract symbols. This is the Indus script, and it is one of the great linguistic puzzles of the ancient world. We have thousands of examples of it, yet we cannot read a single word. Imagine holding one of these seals in your hand. It feels cool and smooth. It has a pleasing weight. You can trace the lines of the animal with your fingertip, and you can stare at the symbols that were once full of meaning, but are now silent. It is like looking at a letter from a lost ancestor, written in a language you've never seen before. You know it means something important, but the meaning is locked away. Let us calmly explore why this key has refused to turn. The first great challenge is the length of the texts. The average inscription on these seals is only about 5 symbols long. The longest one ever found, on a larger, 3-sided tablet, contains only 26 symbols. Think of that. There are no long passages of prose, no lengthy chronicles, no detailed legal codes. We are trying to understand a language from a collection of what may be little more than names, titles, or short declarations. It is like trying to reconstruct the entire English language using only a handful of business cards. The sample size is simply too small to reveal the complex grammar and syntax of a full language. The second, and perhaps most significant, obstacle is the lack of a bilingual text. We have no Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone was the key to Egyptian hieroglyphs, because it contained the same decree written in 3 scripts. A later Egyptian script called Demotic, and, crucially, Ancient Greek, a language that scholars already knew. By comparing the known Greek text to the unknown hieroglyphs, the code could be cracked. No such object has ever been found for the Indus script. Though the Harappans traded with faraway Mesopotamia, no seal has been found with a parallel text in Sumerian cuneiform. Without that bridge, without that known language to provide a foothold, we are adrift in a sea of unknown symbols. This leads to the third challenge. We do not know what language family the script even represents. What were the words that these symbols stood for? Scholars have proposed several theories. Some, perhaps the majority, believe it represents an ancient form of the Dravidian language family. Languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada spoken today mostly in southern India and parts of Pakistan. They argued that the geographic distribution of Dravidian speakers in the past makes this plausible. Others have suggested it could be an early Indo-Aryan language, a precursor to or perhaps it was something else entirely, a language isolate, like the Basque language in Spain, with no surviving relatives at all. If that is the case, even if we deciphered the script, we would be reading sounds that correspond to a language that is utterly lost. We would know how to say the words, but we would never know what they mean. Despite these immense challenges, patient scholarship has given us small glimmers of understanding. For instance, we know which direction the script was written in by carefully examining the seals. Scholars notice that the symbols on the left side of an inscription are often more crowded and squeezed together than the symbols on the right. Sometimes, a symbol on the left will even slightly overlap the one to its right. This suggests that the scribe started on the right and, as they neared the left edge of the small seal, realized they were running out of space. So, the script was read from right to left. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Researchers use statistical analysis to probe the script structure. They have catalogued around 400 unique symbols. This number, 400, is a crucial clue. It's far too many symbols for a simple alphabet, like the Latin alphabet's 26 letters, but it is far too few for a purely logographic system, like Chinese, which has tens of thousands of characters representing whole words. This suggests the Indus script is likely what is called a logosyllabic system, a mix of symbols that stand for whole words. This is the same system used by the Sumerians and the Mayans. The patient work of counting and cataloging continues. Which symbols appear most often, which appear at the beginnings of inscriptions, and which at the end. Those that frequently appear at the end might be grammatical markers, like suffixes in English that denote tense or possession. This statistical work has been combined with the Dravidian language hypothesis to produce some tantalizing, though unproven, suggestions. For example, one of the most common symbols is a fish. In Proto-Dravidian, the word for fish was min, but the word min also meant star or deity. Is it possible that the fish symbol was a rebus, a picture puzzle, representing not a fish, but a star, or a god? It is a beautiful, elegant idea, but without proof. It remains a compelling speculation. So, what were these seals used for? The most common theory is that they were tools of trade and administration. Imagine a merchant bundling a shipment of grain or textiles. He would wrap the bundle in cloth, tie it with a rope, and then slap a lump of wet clay over the knot. Then, he would press his personal seal into the clay. The impression left behind would be his unique mark. It was a signature, a guarantee of ownership, and a seal of authenticity. Any tampering with the goods would break the clay seal, and the recipient would know the shipment had been compromised. This practical, almost mundane, function explains the briefness of the texts. They might simply say the property of ... followed by a name or a title, the overseer of the granary, or perhaps the name of a specific deity the merchant was devoted to. And yet, it is hard to look at the powerful animal motifs and not feel that these seals were more than just administrative tools. The powerful bull, the tiger, the horned figure, seated in a yogic poster, famous Pasupati or Prutashiva Silve, a deep spiritual world. The seals were likely also amulets, objects of personal identity and power, connecting the owner to a clan, a trade, or a protective deity. In the end, we are left in a state of quiet contemplation. The Indus script is a silent testament to a world we can see but not fully enter. The people are gone, and they have taken their voice with them. The elegant symbols are a final, locked door. To gaze upon them is to feel a profound connection to a deep and intelligent past, and also a profound humility in the face of all that we have lost, and all that we may never know. The seals, with their silent script and powerful animals, were more than just amulets or administrative tokens. They were passports to a wider world. The Indus Valley Civilization, for all its inward-facing consistency, was not an island. It was a vital hub in the vast, interconnected world of the Bronze Age, and the seals were the key to its most impressive long-distance enterprise, the sea trade with Mesopotamia, the land of Sumer and Ak. Let us now imagine ourselves as one of these merchants of the Indus, a traveler from the land of Sumerians called Mut. Your life is not on the plains of wheat, but on the waters of the sea. You are preparing for a journey that is both perilous and immensely profitable, a journey to the heart of another great civilization. Your vessel is not a grand trireme or a Viking longship. It is likely a sturdy, functional ship built of bundled reeds, or perhaps timber planks bound tightly with rope. It has a high, curving prow and stern, designed to ride the ocean swells. It is powered by a single, large, square sail of woven cotton, a material for which your homeland is famous. It is a ship built not for speed, but for capacity, and you stock the hold with the treasures of the Indus, not raw materials, but finished high-value goods that speak to the skill of your people. There are strings of lustrous carnelian beads, some bleached and etched with intricate white patterns, a secret technique known only to your artisans. There are boxes of lapis lazuli. There are heavy logs of exotic hardwoods, like rosewood and teak, from the forests of the east. And there are bales of fine cotton cloth, a soft, breathable fabric that is a marvel in the wool-dominated world of Mesopotamia. The journey begins. You guide your ship down the wide, placid mouth of the Indus River and out into the turquoise expanse of the sea. You do not sail out into the open ocean. You are a coaster. You hug the shoreline, keeping the land in sight. It is a slow, patient form of navigation. You sail past the rugged, dry coast of modern-day Iran, a land of stark cliffs and hidden coves. Each night, you pull into a sheltered bay to rest, or you navigate by the stars, the silent, familiar patterns that the fishermen of your land have known for generations. The sounds of your journey are rhythmic and soothing. The steady creak of the ship's hull, the gentle flap of the sail as it catches the wind, the soft hiss of the water as it parts before your prow. The days are filled with the immense, shimmering heat of the sun on the water. The nights are cool, under a canopy of stars so brilliant they seem almost close enough to touch. Life is simple and repetitive, a cycle of watching the wind, the water, and the distant, unchanging line of the coast. After weeks of this slow travel, you enter the sea, what we now call the Persian Gulf. The water becomes calmer, the air heavier, and then you see it. You sail into the mouth of the mighty Euphrates River, and the landscape changes completely. The familiar, orderly brick cities of your homeland are gone. Here, in the land of Sumer, the buildings are made of dun-colored mud, and on the horizon, you see a structure that takes your breath away. A massive, stepped pyramid, a man-made mountain dedicated to a local god, dominating the flat landscape. You arrive at a bustling river port, perhaps the great city of yore. The sounds here are different. The language is a sharp, guttural tongue you do not understand. There is the clang of bronze tools being worked by smiths, a sound less common in your homeland. The smells are of different spices, of roasting mutton, of the thicks. It is an alien world. You and your fellow Maluhan merchants likely have a small enclave in the city, a place where you can live and store your goods. And here, the business of trade begins. It is a quiet, careful process, a barter in silence. You do not share a language with your Sumerian counterparts, so you communicate through gesture, through objects, and through a shared understanding of mathematics. You lay out a string of your finest etched carnelian beads on a cloth. The Sumerian merchant picks them up. He feels their smoothness, admires their deep red color and the precision of the white patterns. His eyes shows approval. He then makes his counteroffer. He does not speak. He lays out several coils of silver, a precious metal that is used as a form of currency here. He points to your beads, then to his silver. You consider it. You shake your head. With a gesture, you indicate you want more. He adds a bundle of fine, soft wool. This is where the genius of your civilization comes into play. To settle the matter, you bring out your weights. A small, carefully protected set of polished cubes of chert, perfectly standardized. You place a bead on one side of a simple balance scale, and your weights on the other. You demonstrate its value. The Sumerian merchant understands this. He has his own system of weights, and the two systems, while different, can be reconciled. It is a language of pure mathematics, a universal language of value. When the deal is struck, the final act is one of trust. The goods are bundled, and you take out your personal seal, the one you wear on a string around your neck. You press it into a lump of clay, marking the transaction as yours, as complete, as guaranteed. It is your bond, your signature, understood and respected even in this foreign land. Living here, in this foreign city, you are a representative of your world. The Sumerians look at your fine goods, your precise weights, and your enigmatic seals, and they see Maluha as a land of mystery, order, and incredible craftsmanship. You trade your beads and wood and cotton for their silver, their wool, and their sesame oil. Then, laden with new wealth, you begin the long, slow journey home. back to the familiar order of your own world. Your mind full of the sights and sounds of a place utterly different from your own. This silent, orderly exchange of goods, across thousands of miles of sea, was the true power of the Indus. Not an empire of armies, but an empire of trade, built on trust, quality, and a shared understanding of numbers. The merchant returns home. The ships are unloaded. The silver from Sumar is stored. The rhythm of life in the great brick city continues. For a time, we have journeyed far tonight. We have stood in the humid air of a city built on a grid of fired brick. We have felt the constant, quiet struggle against the water, and the endless, rhythmic labor of the fields and workshops. We have watched as that world slowly frayed, as the rivers dried and the people walked away into the mists of time. We have stared at their beautiful, silent script, a message in a bottle we cannot open, and we have sailed with their merchants to foreign lands, to trade in a language of gesture and mathematics. And now, our journey ends. We drift back from the past, leaving the silent mounds of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro to their quiet sleep. Think of the world we have just left, a world of immense effort, of precarious existence, a world where survival depended on the community, on the rains, on the river, a world without a written history, their voices lost to us forever. And now, think of yourself, here, in the quiet of your room, safe from the flood and the drought. Your life is not one of endless, manual toil. Your world is saturated with words, with history, with information. The comfort and security that you feel, lying here, is a gift of the modern age, a stark and profound contrast to the fragile flame of life on the banks of the ancient Indus. The story of the Indus Valley Civilization is a quiet one. It does not shout, it whispers. It reminds us that not all great civilizations leave behind epic poems and triumphant statues. Some leave behind a mystery, a lesson in order, in ingenuity, and in the humbling reality that even the most organized of worlds can vanish, returning to the earth as quietly as it came. So now, let these ancient stories go. Let the silent cities fade. Let the undeciphered script be a soothing, abstract pattern behind your closed eyes. Let the gentle rocking of the Melohan trade ship lull your mind. There is nothing left to understand, nothing left to analyze. All that is left is to rest, to let go of the day, and to drift into the deep, peaceful silence of sleep.